Well, this is going to be a bit more of a heartfelt video than usual, which makes sense given that Superman tends to bring that out in a lot of people. It's kind of hard to be super ironic or snarky when talking about Superman because he's such a sincere, lovable character. So, yeah, before I yammer on, let me get into this. Hello, everyone. Britton here, also known as Some Okie Dude, and today I'm going to be talking about a Superman story as part of the kind of Superman-a-thon that I'm doing at the moment, leading up to the Superman movie that is coming out this July, and one of the books I'm going to be talking about today is my personal favorite Superman story of all time, and that is, of course, All-Star Superman by Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely. Easily one of the best Superman stories ever told, and one of my favorite comics of all time, one of my favorite superhero comics of all time, rather than just my favorite Superman story of all time. I'm really glad that I got this edition of All-Star Superman because I really fucking hate the new DC compact editions that they've been putting out, just trying to compress it into smaller... I don't like them. So I'm glad I got this edition so I can see Frank Quitely's amazing cover in all of its glory. I mean, just look at that. Absolutely incredible. Easily one of the best Superman images of all time. And Frank Quitely, man, that guy's absolutely incredible. But anyway, today, talking about All-Star Superman. There are some writers who just get characters on an emotional, psychological, dare I say even nice supernatural levels. A level that is so intimate and personal that it eludes description. It evades description even. With Garth Ennis, it's the Punisher. For Chris Claremont, and John Byrne, depending on who you ask, it's the X-Men. But for Grant Morrison, however, it's the character of Superman. They get Superman in such a way that few can dare reach such an understanding. Some come close, like Mark Waid, for instance. He writes a damn good Superman. I'm sure there's others I could mention. Yet, I find Morrison takes the cake in terms of who best gets the character, because he did this book, and he did it in one, or sorry, they. I didn't mean to misgender them. But they did it in one book and knocked it out of the freaking park. Morrison, admittedly, though, can be a mixed bag for me as a writer and a storyteller. I find they operate at their best when they have a good editor to rein them in and keep them from going off the leash. As when they're allowed to run free, we get such imaginative and groundbreaking, if not fairly disastrous, The Invisibles on our hands. Now, Morrison has been compared to Alan Moore, sometimes fairly, sometimes unfairly. And while I think that Moore is the more disciplined storyteller of the two, and the one that I generally prefer overall, that's not to say that Morrison is without merit. I mean, hell, I'm talking about All-Star Superman today, which is my favorite Superman story of all time, so obviously I like Morrison quite a bit when he, reins himself in. They certainly are capable of brilliance, as their Arkham Asylum book or their new X-Men run have demonstrated, which was also done with the creative team of this book, the latter book anyway. But I find that they have the bad habit of letting their imagination run wild without control and the restraint of somebody like Alan Moore, for instance. But with All-Star Superman, we see just how great of a writer Grant can be when given the room, and just how profound they can be when given the circumstances. Now, All-Star Superman is a great many things. It's the fulfillment of the promise that was made in 1938 when Siegel and Schuster first introduced Superman to the world. It's Grant Morrison playing the sillier aspects of the Silver Age completely straight. It's a Superman story at its most fun, uproarious, adventurous, and dare I even say moving, especially when it counts the most. There may be better Superman stories out there, but I just can't think of any at the moment. But why, Britton? Some might ask. You're not even that big of a Superman fan. Like, you don't even care for Supes all that much. You're totally right. And that's the whole reason why All-Star Superman is the best one of them all, why it's my favorite Superman story ever, and why it's my favorite Grant Morrison story ever. Because this absolutely insane Scottish man from Glasgow took an icon such as Superman and showed us why he matters, why he still matters and why he'll always matter as long as pop culture and superheroes exist. Hell, I wasn't even a big Superman fan when I first read this, despite my soft spot for the Christopher Reeve Superman movies. And as far as I'm concerned, he is fucking Superman, so fight me in the comments section. But I wouldn't call myself the biggest Superman fan now. But Morrison, the crazy bastard, made me love Superman. They made me love this Superman specifically. Because how can you not, after reading this gloriousness, like how can you not love that Superman? Try it. Just try it. Read this book and try not to love Superman. Just go nuts. Try. Let me know down in the comment section if you actually didn't like this version of Superman. I would be absolutely gobsmacked. I can't give Morrison all the credit, though, even though I pay more attention to the writers and the artists. But joining alongside them is, of course, the great Frank Quitely as artist. And as I mentioned, there are writers who get characters. There are artists who complement a writer's sensibilities perfectly. For the aforementioned Ennis, it was the late Steve Dillon. For Ed Brubaker, it's Sean Phillips. For Mark Waid and Kurt Busiek, it's Alex Ross. For Stan Lee, it was the late Jack Kirby, Jack the King Kirby, as so many comics fans call him. But Frank Quitely, he is that guy for Grant Morrison. He is the guy who can take every wild, insane thing that Grant dreams up and make them a reality with the most purity. The way that those two work together borders on the supernatural, and with how well they complement each other's sensibilities and are both on top form with All-Star Superman. Though, what makes Quitely's art in this particularly good is that unlike the more stiff, traditionally heroic versions of Superman that we're accustomed to, Quitely instead shows Superman both as God and man. Someone who's at total ease with his position in the universe. And why shouldn't he be? He's the most powerful being in the universe. I mean, you could tell this from the amazing cover here. This Superman is completely relaxed. He is totally at ease with the world. But I'll show you some other examples of his amazing artwork. I mean, hold on, let me just find it real quick. Just look at that. Look at that. That's just absolutely wonderful. And look at what all that's going on in the page. It is absolutely incredible. Gonna look at some more here. Look at this. Absolutely incredible right here. Let me see if I can find one of the double page spreads here. This is from the very beginning of the book, if this doesn't give you an idea on what Superman is like. There you go. Right freaking there. Absolutely incredible. But he also emphasizes Superman's warmth and humanity despite his alien origins. That despite his power and all the things he could do, he's still just the humble farm boy from Kansas who wants to help people who are in need. I also think that Quitely has the best interpretation of the dichotomy between Superman and Clark Kent that I've yet seen in any Superman media that, again, isn't the Christopher Reeve movie, making it completely believable that no one would ever suspect the goofy, awkward Clark Kent of ever being the all-powerful Superman. To give you an example, I really like this in the back of my particular copy. They have some pages where they showed how they came up with the idea of trying to differentiate Clark Kent and Superman. And look at that. It's absolutely incredible. I mean, I really love the differences, the cadence they put into both Superman and Clark, where it could be believable that no one would suspect Clark of being Superman. There's also a really great... there it is right here, where Superman / Clark is just bumbling around right there. Excellent stuff. Some of the best, like, Clark Kent stuff I've ever seen in my life. Absolutely incredible. Frank Quitely freaking knocked it out of the park with this, with the art in this. Amazing. And also accompanied by the great colors of Jamie Grant, of course. But, of course, Frank Quitely. I mean, I don't know if I'd call him one of my favorite artists, but after this, he's definitely up there as one of the goated artists as far as I'm concerned. All-Star Superman's concept is simple. While on a mission, Superman is overloaded with the sun's golden rays. Good news is he's more powerful than he's ever been. He can do things that he has never been able to do before. Bad news, his cells are now cancerous, and he has a year left to live, which is why it's 12 issues. Like, if you didn't know it already, it's 12 issues. But there's so much more to All-Star Superman than that. It's Grant Morrison capturing what audiences felt back in 1978 when audiences first saw Christopher Reeve as the Man of Steel on the silver screen, and first heard John Williams' iconic score, which, by the way, still goes freaking hard to this day. The same feeling readers had when they first read Action Comics #1. It also has some of the greatest moments in Superman's history, such as Lex Luthor finally seeing how Superman sees the world, which is one of the most beautiful moments in this comic right here. It's towards the end. Superman telling Lois goodbye for the last time and saying he'll love her until the end of time, which is also near the end. Superman saying goodbye to his dad, which is one of the best single issues of the whole thing. I mean, absolutely incredible stuff from Frank Quitely, and I know that my friend Slay will appreciate that shout out because he really loves that particular arc. There's the cover from Frank Quitely. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. Really wonderful issue. Superman saying goodbye to his dad and all. But it also has, tops down, my favorite Superman moment of all time ever put to print. One that has moved me so deeply that it eludes description. Some of you who have read this comic, if any of you, I'm sure there are some of you who have read this, who are bigger Superman fans than I am, or even people who just love comics who've read this and have enjoyed this over the years. You probably know what it is. I won't say what it is because I think that particular moment is meant to be read. And I do think it's a moment that you should read. Just an absolutely beautiful moment and beautiful storytelling from Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely particularly. And Frank Quitely does some of his best work in that moment. But if you guys know what it is, try not to spoil it in the comments, but it is easily my favorite Superman moment of all time, just because despite all of his power, despite all the things he can do, he still chooses to help someone in need. And that's all I'll say about it. I really find that this moment has the most power when reading it. So go do it. Go read this comic and then come back and be like, Britton, you're right. Or go, Britton, you're absolutely off your ass, which I would disbelieve you, because how can you hate that moment? That's all I got to say. Kind of like what Frank Miller did in Batman Year One, Morrison renewed the myth of Superman in this book and explored Superman as a symbol. But he goes even further than that, as Superman is not merely the symbol for hope, optimism, and altruism. He is hope. He is optimism. He is the light. He's everything that is good about our world and the good that humanity should always strive for. He's the best of us, encapsulated in a single character. In All-Star Superman, we see Supes take on 12 Herculean tasks that test him in the ways that he has never been tested before. We see him take on Lex Luthor for the final time, and Lex Luthor in this is freaking awesome. He's also really funny because of how just up his own ass he is. It's really quite fun. I mean, there's some stuff of, I think I already showed you guys this, but there's Luthor. There's some really great stuff with him in there. We see him take on Luthor for the last time. We see Morrison dismantle all the critiques and gripes that people have leveled at Superman over the years, and he showcases why Superman is still the greatest of all superheroes. It's a story that best depicts who Superman is, and few have done it better. When people ask me what my favorite Grant Morrison story is, I still say All-Star Superman. Arkham Asylum comes very close, and I mean that's shocking because, Arkham Asylum is about Batman. But great as it is, that one doesn't make me feel as deeply as All-Star Superman did, and still does in a lot of ways. All-Star Superman is Morrison and Frank Quitely at the height of their creative powers, and for my money, is their crowning achievement, both as a creative team and as individual creators. It's one of those stories that I've tried to find the words to express how it's affected my life over the years. And even after this, I still look for them. For All-Star Superman shows us that not only can Superman fly, but we can fly alongside him. After All-Star Superman, anything was possible. So, yeah, that's all I have for my review of Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely's All-Star Superman, my favorite Superman story of all time, and easily the best Superman story I've ever read, at least in my opinion anyway. I hope you guys enjoyed this review. I hope you guys at least could notice that my passion for this book was seeping through. And if you've read this book, let me know what you guys thought of it. As I like to do before the end of these, you can find me on Twitter. You can also find me on Goodreads and Letterboxd, where I do reviews that are probably more coherent than the one you just heard right now. You can also find me on Instagram and Blue Sky. I don't use Blue Sky very much, but I'm starting to get used to it a little more. You can also like, subscribe, comment. I love hearing comments from you guys. As my buddy John Minton likes to say, it feels good when you press that like button. It feels good when you press that subscribe button. And hopefully you guys enjoyed this heartfelt love letter / review / shill for All-Star Superman. It truly is one of the greatest comics I've ever read. Just hands down, one of the best superhero comics I've ever read. And as far as right now, it is still my favorite Grant Morrison story that he's ever done. And I know there's probably going to be some Morrison fans who goes like, well, what about this? And what about that? I probably haven't read a lot of them, because I've only read this, Arkham Asylum, his X-Men run, and, of course, The Invisibles. Which, oh man, The Invisibles, that's something else. But anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this review. Until next time, see you guys later. Bye-bye.